more obvious. Can you fight? And I'm not suggesting you have to be the personification of whatever professional fighter or warrior you might have in mind, but you better be able to do something. Not because it's likely that you're ever going to have to use it, but because if you can't, in the moment where someone you care about needs you, you will never forgive yourself. And maybe you shouldn't. Now, the second point to this is
okay, so here's the deal. I will, and I've learned to do this. I'll only not do this in certain situations, but I don't sit with my back to the door at restaurants.
Nope, ever.
And I learned from a guy that was in special forces who was doing some training for some folks at the church, ironically, because a lot of churches now have security teams. I was learning from them, like, when you go into any place where you're at, always do a risk assessment.
Yes.
And always look around kind of like Matt Damon and think, if something were to go down, like even yesterday, where was I at? I was at a restaurant, and I thought to myself, if somebody walks in here with a gun and they're about to start shooting people up, what will be the thing that I will grab that I can get over to them before they can get over to killing a bunch of people?
Yep.
And I always do that risk assessment and what do I have available to me to be able to make damage and contact. And so, man, he's about to make a great point there, but I just wanted to say that as well, is that's already ingrained in me.
My daughter just asked me, we went to Denny's on, what day is today? Must have been Monday. We went to Denny's on Monday on our way to Louisville, because that's where I am today. And she asked me, Dad, why do you always sit? Like, I always notice you sit with your face to the door. And I told her the exact same thing. I said, the world's crazy. I want to see who comes in that door. I want to know where my exits are. I want to know who I think I can handle, who I can't handle.
Uh-huh.
I want to know what cover looks like.
Well, we born identity up in this thing today.
Like, I want to know what cover looks like. And when I was in school, even in seminary, I got a chance to take some martial arts classes with these folks called The Edge. Their whole thing was not necessarily just teaching you Taekwondo. Their big thing was teaching you self-defense and what it looks like to do a risk assessment, because they felt like what's going to happen is you're going to find yourself in a situation that this guy is saying, can you fight? Like I said, I'm not God's gift to boxing. I'm not Bruce Lee. I'm not any of those things. All I've made up my mind to do is prepare myself as best I can to either, one, escape a situation or be ready to handle the situation as best I can to protect my family. So part of that is walking in there. I'm always keeping my eyes open, and I'm placing my family in certain places so that, hey, this is where you're going when the stuff hits the fan. That's where I'm going when the stuff hits the fan. And as long as we got a plan, I feel like we live.
Yeah.
But when we don't have a plan, people get hurt.
I'm a little bit of a tool. I'll admit it. But sometimes the server will be taking us over to a place to sit, and I'll say, I don't want to sit there. Let's sit over here. I say, can we sit over there? Can we sit over there? Because I'm doing the exact same thing, Jason. If something goes down, I want to be able to see what's going down, and I want to be able to protect my family. And me sitting there doesn't put my family in the best advantage to be able to do that. And so it's not always that I'm being a tool. Yeah. But I do think about that when I go out. All right, let's just keep going. Here's one that strikes at my heart because I travel a lot.
You better be present. Because having the capacity and the capability to do what you need doesn't mean a great deal if you aren't around when you're needed. Predators know that you're a threat, not just because of your capability, but because of your proximity. And there's a lot of reasons why your kids need you to be there for them. And your kids also need to know you're a threat, not to them, but on their behalf. For your daughters, I will tell you right now, your little girl starts off her life depending on you to keep the monsters underneath her bed and inside her closet, cowering with the knowledge that you'll protect her. And as she grows older, and I don't care what she says, she wants the boy she likes to be intimidated by you. And it's not intimidation out of cruelty or being a bully. It's a question of vetting. No. Because if you do your job correctly, your daughter will look for in him the characteristics that she saw in you.
I'm going to stop it right there because there's a lot to say. Wow. There's a lot to say, Jason, because I think that in our culture, man, do I want to open this can up today?
Hey, I've already blessed the algorithm, so you might as well.
we're gonna start getting every video on betrothal and dating and all these just nonsensical American ways of nonsense. I'm just Can I just look right in the camera and say I'm so disappointed, not in the world. I'm so disappointed in Christian parents who will trot their kids out, son or daughter out there, and just leave them out there for the world.
Mm.
And specifically when it comes to this issue of dating, courtship, marriage, however that combination and flow takes place in their lives, have no vetting process whatsoever. Nothing with regards to the things that we're talking about on this show today. There's some let me be kind. There are some people that it's not discrimination against, but it's that your child has not been taught these things. And so what would the probability be that they would be able to protect or provide for or to be able to respond appropriately in certain situations if they have not been taught that? And listen, I believe in what Vodi Bakum says: if you can't find some, make some. Like, bring them around you and you teach them these things. And I believe all in that. But I'm talking about the Christian parents, the two parents who are at home and who let their kids do whatever the heck they want to do. And they just baptize and say, well, they're good. We just, they're just kids.
Yeah.
Oh, you're just growing up. And I'm like, no, you actually
boys
have to
be
teach,
boys, girls be girls.
You actually have to teach them some of these things.
You know what I really hate, Erskine, is the ones that say, well, they're going to do it anyways. They're going to be this way anyway, so why even bother? You coward. I look you dead in the face. You coward. That's cowardly.
Let's look at the screen right now
cowardly.
And say, to all the cowards that are out there,
you got a character problem is what you have. That's cowardly. Man.
And a testosterone problem. I don't know. Check your nuts. If you're a father that's out there and you're not protecting your daughter.
That's such a weak argument. That your kid's got that kind of character. They ain't gonna listen to you. They ain't gonna trust you. They ain't gonna be with you.
You can't say nothing to them.
It's crazy. Like, hey, look, and look. I get at the same time. I understand completely that children are going to follow a certain direction, and you can teach them all day long, but they still gonna make up their mind. But it doesn't mean we don't intentionally go after them and teach them. Like, it doesn't mean that we don't have a vetting. It means we don't try and bust our tails to get after it. But this kind of like surrender parenting, this kind of like, it's just going to be what it is. So therefore, why should I bother? Why should I try? Is absolute nonsense.
I need to calm down a little bit, but I'm gonna keep it real, Jason. You know that we have talked about this numerous occasions. I'm not just pointing the finger at other people's kids. I'm pointing the finger at my own kids.
Yeah.
And saying, if you're a parent that's paying any attention to what's going on there and you're concerned about spiritual things, that if I have a kid that's not there, you shouldn't want to be trying to get your kids in a relationship with my kid.
Yeah.
Because they're not ready.
Yeah.
I'm saying they're not ready because they have not been taught these things, embraced these things, applied these things in their own life. And so it's not just a problem with you. It's a problem with them.
And you, as a parent, are you willing to actually humbly acknowledge that, hey, like I let's just say I have a kid who's not picking up what I'm putting down in the house, right? And that happens all the time in homes. The kid is just not picking up what you're putting down, and you have he or she may act well in church and be looking obedient and all this. And I know that there's a Christian family maybe saying wanting to court my son, but he's not a believer. I'm gonna be the first one to tell him, don't be going after him.
Exactly.
He ain't there.
Exactly.
He ain't there. You have a daughter who's professing Christ. I have a son who's maybe acting okay and settling for obedience, but he's not necessarily a believer. I'm sorry. As a parent, I got to tell you, this ain't a good work. Yeah. I'm telling you, that is foreign in many homes, and especially in Christian homes, to be able to say to your kid, you're not there. I'm not gonna advocate that you marry this girl or be with this girl and expect her to convert you. No, because I wouldn't. No. From somebody else. Like, so one of the things I've enjoyed, like with my daughters in particular, they're at this age. Not Abigail so much. She's 14. So we have a no dating. Here, you want to get controversial? We have a no dating policy in high school. You've got other things you got to focus on, other things you got to do, right? But my oldest daughter is at an age now where she's looking for a husband. So normal. She calls me up, and there's a young man who's kind of interested in her, and she first gets my assessment. Like, she gets my opinion. She's like, what do you think? This is where he goes to church, and this is what we've been talking about spiritually. And do you think I should move into this? And what are your thoughts? I had an amazing conversation with this little girl about things like this. And she didn't have to call me, right? She didn't have to be like, she's grown. So technically she's an adult. I guess she can make the decision on her own. But we've developed a relationship in the house where she knows daddy loves her, daddy's a protector, and daddy needs to have a say in what's going on here, not because I'm obligated or given the right, but because she respects my wisdom and authority. And we have this relationship. And it was amazing to sit and listen to her ask these really cool questions.
Yeah.
And then get my input on it. And it was a sweet time. I just thought, what a beautiful conversation I just had with my daughter, who is at an age where marriage is now possible. And for her to be willing to invite me into that and allow me to have a say, I mean, that was earned over years of letting her know you can trust daddy, that he loves you, and he'll be there to protect you whenever he can, to the best he can.
Yeah.
And I hope that's what I hope for all Christian parents. I hope they all get to experience that.
It may be shocking. It may even be startling if you're watching this today and you're like, Jason and his kids. Go ahead and put Erskine and his kids in that same category, because Jason and I we've been talking about this kind of conversation for 14 years.
Yeah.
Pretty much the entirety. So anybody who knows us, really knows us, this kind of conversation and repartee between Jason and I is not shocking. It's not revelatory at all. It's just the way things are. It's just standard course of how we train and disciple our kids. Now, what gets interesting and what gets wacky is when you have people who come from outside of that kind of worldview, who are also Christians, who bump up into your worldview and they go, man, you're just, restrictive parent, all the different things that we have been called, both to our face and then under people's breath and then other kids.